right. A very good evening to everyone, to all of our participants today. Thank you very much for taking out your time this evening and join us at this webinar. My name is Michelle. I'll be your moderator for today. If there's any questions, you can always feel free to drop in the chat box, the Zoom chat room. Ken will be here to assist you in any administrative matter. If you face any problem with Zoom, please chat with Ken. He'll be able to advise you. Today, the topic will be on blockchain and cryptocurrency, and we are going to find out if it's a new normal. And this webinar is actually organized by Singapore Young Entrepreneurs Award. And this is actually a platform and a program that is owned and organized by JCI Marina. JCI stands for Junior Chamber International, and we are a non-profit organization for young individuals who are actually interested in becoming a leader, and we are usually 40 years old and below. This program itself is also co-organized by PAYM. I'm not sure how many of you heard of PAYM, but they are actually Singapore's government body, People's Association Youth Movement. All right, before we begin into the webinar, I would like to highlight a few housekeeping rules. In order for our speakers to be able to identify you and address you correctly during the Q&A question, we hope that you can actually rename yourself in your Zoom with your first name and last name displayed at all times. Secondly, we hope that you can be muted. And this is in order to minimize disruption, but we are also very excited to meet every one of you. So we encourage you to turn on your video. If you have any questions during the entire webinar or during the Q&A session, you can actually type them in the Zoom chat function. Do not use the raise hand function, as there's a lot of participants coming in joining us today. We won't be able to recognize everybody at one go, and we will be able to pick up questions from the Zoom chat function itself. I will be helping you to ask the question to the speakers, and the speakers can reply you from there. Also, please be advised that this webinar will be recorded, and the organizing committee will reserve the right to redistribute the recording in future, be it for marketing purposes or for any other reasons. However, recording by participants is strictly prohibited. Okay, now I'll just straight into the program schedule. This is the program schedule today. We're right now at the introduction part, followed by our speaker, Lim Hui Jie. He will be sharing with you about blockchain. And then another speaker, our second speaker will be Duke Alvin Lim. He will be introducing to you about cryptocurrency, and followed by a closing for the day. Before we begin, I would like to give you a bit of introduction on what SYEA is. As the name would have mentioned, SYEA is Singapore Young Entrepreneurs Award. It is actually an award that is a program that is organized by JCI Marina and PAYM. But we are more than just an award. Unlike an ordinary award out there, we also offer very exciting business program that will happen throughout the year from June 2020 to June 2021. And the programs will be based on sustainable business network, mentorship, and financial accessibility. Here are some of the programs that will happen throughout the year if you were to come on board with Singapore Young Entrepreneurs Award. And you will be able to access to all these exciting networks, webinars, mentorship, angel investors, grants, loans, capital, venture capitalists, and you name it. We will be able to support you, and we are here to help all startups out there. And as the name has mentioned, we are actually an award platform as well. So by November this year, we will also be giving out awards based on these 6 categories. The 6 categories is actually based on United Nations Sustainable Development Awards. And it is actually an award that is on an international recognition platform. There are actually 6 categories for this year, being the number 3, good health and well-being, 4, quality education, 5, gender equality, 8, decent work and economic growth, 9, industry innovation and infrastructure, and 12, responsible consumption and production. If you are an entrepreneur and your business fit into any of these award categories, please do reach out to us now as the nomination is currently open. Here are the nominations and eligibility. If you are 35 years old and below, young entrepreneur with a registered company incorporated in Singapore, and you are a nominee that holds more than 35% of your company share, you'll be eligible for the nomination. So what are you waiting for now? You can contact us. This is the contact detail. Take a screenshot, take a snap with your phone right now, and please contact us. We will have designated organizing committee who will be helping you with all your nominations procedure and will be able to answer all your queries. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to take a picture of this screenshot of this slide. Okay, have everybody taken a picture or screenshot of this slide? Now I will move on. Okay, so let me give you a brief introduction of our speaker. Our speaker, Lim Hui Jie, he will be the first speaker who will be talking about blockchain for today. He's actually a serial entrepreneur with very extensive business experience. And he actually sat on the board of 3 listed companies and listed his company onto Australia's stock exchange with over 230 million USD before the age of 30 years old. He is also one of the youngest executive director of a London-listed company. Hui Jie has also obtained his EMBA from a course that is conducted by Columbia Business School, London Business School, and the University of Hong Kong, which this EMBA is also recognized as the top 3 EMBA programs by Financial Times. Today, Hui Jie is the founder and executive director of Vision Group Corporation, an organization that focuses on artificial intelligence, blockchain, and cybersecurity. Vision Group Corporation today serves a wide array of customers from MNCs and government agencies. Hui Jie was also a TEDx speaker in 2019, and this year, he is a gold winner of National Youth Entrepreneur Award. So let's welcome Hui Jie for his presentation. Hui Jie, please, over to you.
All right, so very good evening to everyone. Thank you very much to JCI, to SYEA, as well as to Michelle. I'm Hui Jie, I'm based in Singapore. So before I start, maybe share a little bit about a very quick background. So other than being an entrepreneur, one of the key things that I'm always very passionate about, it's really about how to solve real world problems. And the question I always ask is, how do I solve a large enough problem that basically would impact the world itself? The things that I really look at, specifically in the areas of technology, where I see and look at what's going to be the world like in the next 3 years, in the next 6 years, or even the next 10 years itself. So today's session, it's really talk about one key area of what I see technology would look like in the next number of years, and one key specific areas of blockchain itself. So before we look into the future, many a time we need to look a little bit at the past itself. And history really shares us a little bit on what actually the future might bring and hold for us. If we look very much at technology over the last number of years, what's really interesting is that we see anything from the phone to radio to the personal computer to the mobile phone, personal computers, as well as what we have today. One of the key things that we see is that technology is moving faster and faster, and more importantly, innovations are coming out much more rapidly than ever before. And in addition to the number of technology innovations which are coming out, one of the things that we see also is the adoption of technology over the last number of years. So in one of the key studies, it looked at the number of years it takes before the adoption of 25% of the US population. We see at electricity, it took about 46 years for adoption. We look at the telephone for 35 years and the television of 26 years. Then come by the personal computer, which took 16 years, the cell phone 13 years, and the World Wide Web at 7 years. What's interesting today, after the advent of so-called internet as well as penetration, we are able to see that Pokemon Go took an adoption rate of just 19 days. What does this tell us? It tells us that technology innovation is not only coming about faster and faster, but the way people are reacting to technology, the way people are adopting technology is increasingly accelerating at a very much faster pace. Another study that we look at is very much the top 20 biggest internet companies over the last 20 years. And if we took a study and look at 1998, the top 20 internet companies at that point of time, and we did a series of every single 5 years, who would be the top internet companies every single 5 years. Those that are in white are companies that still manage to move on to the next 5 years. And those basically in gray are the ones that drop off the top 20 list. We bring this forward all the way to 2018, which is 20 years later. And we discover a few interesting facts. Number one, every single 5 years, there are more than 30% of the companies that has dropped out of the top 20 internet companies. Number two, after 20 years, there's only 2 companies of the original 20 that's still in the top 20 list of top internet companies. One interesting fact as well is we're able to see that lesser and lesser companies are dropping off the top 20 list. The question really to ask ourselves is this. This is what has happened in the last 20 years, but what is going to happen next in the next 20 years? And of course, if we can answer this, this brings forth a lot of interesting opportunities, as well as a lot of interesting trends that we might look into. We are today in an era of data explosion. What's really interesting is 90% of the world's data was created in just the last 3 years. Can you imagine what would the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and the next 20 years really bring us? And what's interesting is that not a lot of people or companies know about this key statistics of number of information and data that's being created. And because of this, there are a lot of companies that are ill-equipped to be able to handle this amount of data growth over the last 3 years, and more so coming in the next 5 to 10 years. With these huge amounts of data growth, it brings forth 3 very interesting trends that companies might be ill-equipped to be able to handle in the coming years. Statistic number 1, we have $600 billion worth of loss due to online frauds and scams in the year 2017. We are very much in an increasingly less trustful world. Today, we have about 1.7 megabytes of data that's produced every single second by each person in an increasingly noisier world, and a 600% increase in cyber attacks with an estimated $6 trillion worth of loss annually in the year 2021. Very much an increasingly insecure world. So what we really see is what will be the technologies that will impact companies and help companies to future-proof themselves in the next coming years. We believe that there are 3 core technologies that are integral to the future of companies. Specifically, blockchain, which brings forth trust, AI, that brings forth clarity, and cybersecurity that brings forth peace of mind. What's interesting is that these 3 core technologies are all very large technologies by itself. And a lot of people think that each of these technologies run independent from each other. However, at Vision here, we do feel strongly that all 3 core technologies are integral to a company being able to future-proof themselves. Imagine if you have a lot of information and you have trust, but there's no means for you to be able to clarify or really identify the insights of what will be useful for your company. Or imagine even this, if you have very trusted information and you have a lot of sensitive information that is already sorted out through AI, but your information is not secured and it gets hacked or it gets fraudulently scammed or it gets leaked, that would be detrimental for companies as well. So we believe strongly that these three core technologies are very much a leg of a tripod. For you to sit stably, you need all three core technologies. For companies to future-proof themselves, they need all these three core technologies to be able to efficiently or to be able to future-proof themselves moving forward. The question then to ask from an impact to business perspective, a failure to protect as well as a failure to utilize. So some key interesting statistics is that if companies on average have a loss in business for 1 million data records, on average they lose about 40 million loss in productivity. A crazy interesting statistics is that on average, companies take 200 days to find out that they have a data leak, and another 165 days to be able to solve that problem. On average, it takes a company 1 full year to identify that they have a data breach and to be able to resolve that. Can you imagine if today you're a bank or insurance company or a government agency, it takes you 1 year on average to identify and eventually resolve that. This is a huge problem that companies are facing and needs to solve moving forward in the future. And effectively lost in terms of market value is about 7.27% if they are a listed company. More so just a failure to protect, it's very much a failure to utilize as well. Loss in businesses on average is about 15-25%, productivity of 85%, and 25% less revenue and 10% more costs if companies have a failure to utilize data. So at Vision Group, we really focus a lot on being a data-first technology group that looks into data productivity, focus on data decisioning, automation, as well as trust, empowered by AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity. One interesting journey that we look at for a company that really would look at how they would like to optimize as well as to leverage upon the data they have, starting very much with data discovery, moving towards management, optimization, automation, protection, as well as integrity. And this is very much what we look at from a data journey perspective to be able to fully utilize data itself. So moving forward, AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity. Three very large topics and three very large topics to cover in a pretty short period of time. So what would be one of the key areas that I'll be focusing on primarily is areas of blockchain, as I believe it's one of the key areas that will bring forth huge amounts of impact to the world moving forward. The question today to really ask is this: will blockchain change the world? Three core topics that I'll be focusing on would be very much in the areas of trust, security, and control. So let's jump into the first topic of trust. No one trusts anyone anymore. And something very interesting to think about. And what does this really allude me to? It's my next point is this. Would you trust a robot more? Or would you trust a human more moving forward in your life? And this is an interesting question to ask because every single day, even today, we are interacting more with robots and machines. And moving forward in the future, we will be interacting definitely more with robots and machines. The question then is, of course, this question of would you trust a robot more or would you trust a human more is very contextual. And let's put this into context. Would you trust a chatbot more to give you directions from point A to point B? Or a driverless vehicle that will bring you very much from your point of destination to where you want to go without you even driving the car? Or next, a machine to do surgery on you, or a robot to take care of your kid or children? How far would you go in trusting a robot more than a human being? So interesting fact, a huge study was done in the United States for about 8,000, 9,000 employees, and 64% of the people trust a robot more than their managers. Can you imagine that? Another interesting fact is that people trust machines more than humans, specifically for private as well as financial information. And that's pretty interesting because today, if an agent calls you or a bank calls you and asks you, what's your net worth? Or how much money do you have in your bank account? Or basically where your investments lie, would you be more comfortable sharing with a machine or robot or with an actual human being? I would say most people actually are more comfortable with sharing with a robot for their personal private information. But when they seek for advice or they seek for specific information that might not be fully just factual, probably a human being might be something that they might be more comfortable talking to. So we talk about trust, but trust really leads us to something next, which is something that we can really use, which we talk about agreements. And from time in antiquity, right, many years ago, when we didn't have much, we have agreements through a gentleman's handshake or a nod of head. Verbal agreements then was something that was normal. And over time, a lot of us became more educated. We started to have written contracts. We have very complicated legal documents that we send and we sign and spend time running through. Of course, if that would have worked, then we wouldn't have so many legal cases still ongoing for disputes and so many lawyers being so wealthy and rich. So that leads us to this question of what would agreements and trust look like in the future? And that brings us to the next point of smart contracts. Or we can term it as programmable contracts. What the future brings forth for us, especially in the areas of technology or blockchain, is what we term as smart contracts, when we can actually program a trigger event and an end outcome of what would actually happen directly into the program itself. So if something happens, what else will eventually happen? If I receive the stock of logistics or products that I'm promised, fundamentally the monies would be released to whichever counterparty has provided me the stocks or products of the likes. By writing in the trigger events as well as the conditions into smart contracts, we do hope then there would be lesser disputes and at least there will be a specific outcome of what's black and what's white. Our next point then brings forth of what's the use case of blockchain, something a little bit closer to what we use and do every day, food. The question to ask over here very much is this: how do we really tell when we drink that very nice bottle of whiskey or that wine from that really nice region that whiskey or wine really comes from where states it came from? How do we really know that when eat that organic food, that food is really organic and it came from where it stated it originally was harvested from? If we eat specific foods that say does not harm the environment, how do we know that it really does not harm the environment? And I guess this is one of the key things moving forward in the future that blockchain can bring forth for us, to be able to track the provenance of where it originally was formed and to give the trust to the consumer or the end customer that where the original food said it was from really is where it is from. And that would give us better comfort in knowing that the food that I feed to my children is actually safe to eat. In areas of trust with blockchain, we're able to create trust in a less trustless society through technology. We're able to have agreements on smart contracts, and we're able to have better food safety and procurement through the immutability and permanence of data, the provenance and traceability of where the original source comes from, and to provide a single source of truth and assurance of where the product really is from. That leads us to the next point of data explosion, which I've covered. 90% of the world's data was created in the last 3 years. Interesting fact, 2.5 quintillion bytes of data is created every day. That's like 18 zeros, 1/8. As mentioned, can you imagine what the next 5 or 10 years will bring for us? it's really a jungle in the data world. Every single step we take, every turn we take is fraught with dangers where we might potentially lose very sensitive data or private data that we actually have. So in areas of blockchain, what's really interesting is that we are really able to provide better forms of security for the permanence of data. So we look at some of the recent security breach out there in the world. The more famous Facebook breach, where $5 billion was fined on Facebook. To give you a bit of an idea about that, it's about 2.7 billion user records that was leaked. On average, that's $1.85 per user. And of course, we have British Airways that leaked information or was hacked of information as well. They were fined a total of 229 million US dollars. On average, the amount of data leaks was just 500,000 people. It's $458 per user. Does this mean that the information and private information on Facebook is hundreds times less valuable than the information that was leaked on British Airways? How do we actually value that information? And if tomorrow your personal private information, your health information, and any other financial information is leaked, what kind of value are we able to place on that? So interesting fact, in the Singapore government have recently set up a government data office, a GDO. And the objective of GDO is really to be able to accelerate if there was any potential leaks in any forms of government agencies. And that was brought up to the attention of GDO. They were able to accelerate the actions they are able to take to look into that matter. An interesting study that they did in Singapore was that we had 90 over agencies or government agencies, of which there are approximately about 2,800 systems. And they did a study of about 300 of those systems, and it came out with some very astonishing facts. Number one, out of every 4 government systems, there are 3 vulnerabilities. 3 out of 4 agent systems has a vulnerability. And out of 100%, 60% is low risk, 30% is mid risk, and 10% is high risk. These are crazy statistics. I think the Singapore government has done a fantastic job in not only studying the current state, but also publishing this. And they came out with 5 key measures to state down what they're going to do over the course of the next 2 to 3 years to be able to bring down these statistics drastically. One of the key areas is to be able to make data unusable, even though hackers are able to extract information from the servers of these systems. And the second is to be able to have a watermark or traceability of where this data come from. One of the key things that blockchain is able to bring forth is able to protect the original information split up to multiple different parts and pieces. And in essence, even if hacker were to steal or manage to get their hold of hands onto the data for a few pieces, it's very much like a jigsaw puzzle where they would not still be able to have every single piece itself. So blockchain is able, in areas of security, bring forth this level of security to systems moving forward. The last point I have is very much in the areas of control. The question to ask is your data really yours? Every single day, we are creating so much information. We are uploading things onto Facebook. We are taking photos with Instagram. We are doing YouTube videos. We are recording on Zoom. Is our data really ours? So a survey was very much done and states that 90% of respondents said that they would be very concerned if the company at which the data was stored was sold to another party. Unfortunately for them, it's already happening every single day. It's happening every single day that you're uploading your information onto Google, onto Facebook, onto Apple, or even filling in the survey forms that you have, or having your credit card information or financial statements or banking information sold to another party. But a fundamental shift in a mindset might be very much this. Yes, you might not wish for your data to be sold to other companies or third parties. But what if the companies with your data actually pays you money for the data that you have? Would you sell your information for $50 a month? What if it's $500? Or what if it's $1,000 every month? What if your data is masked and they are not able to trace the data back to your personal identity? Would you then be comfortable with selling your data to another party? So that's a question you can ask yourself, and you can ask yourself what price you're comfortable with, and that's a question only you yourself will know. So another survey was done that 81% of Americans feel they have little control over data collected, 79% concerned over how the data is used, and 59% very much have little understanding about how very much the data is being used itself. But the question here today is not just about the data that's being collected and the data that's being sold. The question today is not only about the privacy of data that you have. The question today is very much about the control that you have over your data itself. And of course, we ask all the questions: who should control data? Where should they use our data? Why? What? When? And how? These are fundamental questions that we can ask. Unfortunately, we are already not in control of our data. And moving forward, the governments and many other companies are attempting in best effort to be able to introduce in other acts, like in Singapore, the PDPA, which is Personal Data Acts, or in Europe, GDPR and of the likes. But put some thought to this, because when you wear your Fitbit or your Google Fit or any other so-called wearable that tracks your sleep rate or your exercise or where you are, do remember that your data is actually being shared, analyzed, and probably being sold as well. What blockchain can bring forth in this particular area of control is that because the data is created by yourself, it gives forth a technology that can actually allow the end user to have rights over the data they have. Will that actually be implemented? That's another question, but the technology do allow the end user to be able to have that right to them. So the three key areas of trust, security, and control. Blockchain do brings forth trust in a less trusted society, security in an increasingly unsecured world, and control in more uncontrollable times. If there's only one thing to bring forth, or one thing to bring home today from this, one of the key things I believe strongly is that blockchain is to trust what the internet is to information. Believing strongly that this technology will impact the world for many years to come, very much like the way the internet has impacted us ever since. So question, will blockchain change the world? That's something for you to answer and for us to find out in the next 5, 10, or 20 years. So as a last parting note, I would like to share a little bit on some very quick use cases on how blockchain can help some of the key industries. I believe I have a little bit of time left, so I'll try to cover that as soon as possible. So one of the key areas is very much at Vision, how we actually help companies in the areas of data. And one of the group of companies we help are banks within the region and global banks as well, for the areas of data decisioning as well as data discovery. In large organizations, the fact of the matter today is that every single day we have huge amounts of data that's being created. But the problem is that we do not really know where all the data is. In the areas of banks, there are systems that has been implemented over the last 30 years. There are systems that's implemented over the last 3 years. Probably the person that implemented the system 30 years ago is no longer around. And the bank typically might have data that's stored on their own servers, moving forward on a private cloud of Google or Amazon of the likes. And they have a lot of data that's flowing in as well as out of all those systems. So at Vision, we have a tool called Data Sense that actually allows the bank to be able to connect to all these data sources and to be able to create a data map. And this data map, they are then able to recognize where all the data is, but more importantly, they're able to chart out where their future would go in terms of their digital transformation journey. The question to ask is really this: if you do not know where you are, how are you going to plan where you want to go very much moving forward in the future? And with this data map, you're then better able to also identify what might be data breach, what might be data abnormalities, and if there was a data leak or data abnormality, you're able to pinpoint very, very quickly where the data breach, abnormality, or fraud really is. Moving forward for your own company, do think and put some thought to that. If you do not know where your data is or where your data are going, how are you able to most effectively utilize your data, protect your data, control your data, and effectively be able to monetize upon it? Something to think about. Data rights and privacy in the insurance industry. Every single day, the insurance world is very much going to change in the future. What we now know as fixed insurance is going to change, where insurance companies are in moving forward going to collect data on your health records. They're going to collect data on your sleep rate, your exercise rate, your lifestyle activity. And they're going to collect data on your genomics of what your DNA is going to be like. The question then is that a lot of people are concerned with having that data being implemented or being controlled by a specific central body because that data is highly private. With the implementation of blockchain, we're able then to have the end user control the data rights as well as have that necessary data privacy when they interact with the insurance industry. Companies that wish to have participants provide very sensitive, private information are now able to utilize the technology to give a sense of comfort to the end user. And finally, in the areas of data collaboration and mobility, we are in a highly connected and increasingly accelerating connected world. And without even talking about the collaboration and mobility part of maritime industry, let me sort this out for a case that we are actually experiencing every day ourselves. When we go into the shopping mall, we take out our phone and we scan that QR code that checks us into the shopping mall. Then we go to the supermarket and then we check that in again. At least that's 2 points of checks or 3 points of check. But imagine just 2 months ago or 3 months ago, where every single checkpoint, we have to key in all our information over and over and over and over again, spending at least 30 seconds to a minute at each checkpoint. And you go to 3 or 4 or 5 different places, that's 15 or 20 minutes a day, which is crazy. With, of course, the advent of technology, nowadays it's better. But if all these different stakeholders were to be able to collaborate together, have that data collaborated, have that data mobile, and at the same time secured, our world will be very much more easier, convenient, and I guess we'll be a bit more happier without needing to key in all those information itself. And that's what blockchain is able to bring forth in today's world. That's all I have. Thank you very much for the time to share. Thank you very much to JCI, SYEA, and to organizers, and open for questions for the remaining time that we have. So as the organizers are looking at the questions, we actually had an interesting poll that was being done, just a simple 3 questions. And I believe everyone is able to look at the poll results. If not, please do raise that out, or for the host, please do share with them. So which technology would you think would be most impactful in the next 10 years? 60% AI, 30% blockchain, 10% cybersecurity. Well, I think all three technologies will be impactful. Which three technologies will be specifically impactful? That's hard to say. Honestly, technologies impact everyone in a different manner, every company in a different way, and everyone to a different extent. Fundamentally, there's no right answer to that. So that's just for understanding of what the so-called audience do think about in terms of technology that will impact everyone. Number two, how familiar are you with blockchain on a scale of 1 to 10? We have a pretty good mix of 1 to 5 being on a higher weightage. So I'll try to dumb down the technological parts of blockchain during the questions itself. Which part of blockchain are you interested in finding out more? Technology is the main key area. Okay, so I guess during the questions and Q&A, I'll focus a little bit more on that specific aspect. All right, over to the organizers to manage the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Hui Jie. That was a very insightful sharing, and I hope that everyone here today have learned a bit more about what blockchain is. We are right now open for Q&A. Due to limited time, we will be taking in only the first 3 to 4 questions. So fastest fingers first. However, if you do have questions and we do not have enough time to answer, please continue typing out your questions in the chat group. We will collate the questions, and after the event, we'll get the speakers to write down the answers and we'll send the answers to you. So please, right now, let's have our first participant. Does anyone have any questions for Hui Jie? Well, Hui Jie done a very good job, is it? As I don't see that there's a question. Everybody seems that they do understand what blockchain is. Does anyone have a question?
So in the meantime, well, oh, we have, okay, let's go
yeah,
ahead.
We do have one question from Jirei Xiao.
Yes.
What are the tech companies that will survive the next 5 years, in your opinion?
I think technology companies that provide fundamental value. And what we mean by that? So there are a lot of technology companies out there, of course, that burn a lot of money, grows really fast, and look always at so-called what we term as hype cycles. Hype cycles means that what's the latest new thing that's coming up? What's really exciting? And what's something that all the investors might be looking into? So I think companies that provide fundamental value, right, that solves a real world problem are companies that will potentially survive if they are managed properly. So as long as we are able to answer the question, what problem am I solving? Who am I solving it for? How much would that problem eventually equate to in terms of value itself? And we're able to effectively execute a strategy that solves that problem for many groups of people, and it's a big enough problem, and it's a valuable enough problem, and they are able to manage so-called their cash flow from there. I believe these are the technologies that will continue to endure unless they have a very rich investor or godfather around that gives them lots of money to survive for the next 5 years. So I believe strongly that companies that are able to provide the enduring value will be the companies that can survive.
Thank you, Hui Jie, for answering. Now we do have more questions that have come in from Malcolm. How do you think this tech will affect digital marketing?
I think there are 3 implements that digital marketing is able to benefit from areas of blockchain, AI, and cybersecurity. I'll start first with AI. I believe moving forward that technology in the areas of digital marketing will become more precision-based. And what I mean by precision-based is that in the future, it will be hyper-localized. No longer will be the model where I splash up a specific advertisement or a specific video only, or a specific picture or brochure. And in essence, it will be the same for everyone. With the advent of technology we have today, if today you're clipping from a mobile phone or from a tablet or from a computer, that's specifically from a specific geolocation-based model, whether in Singapore or US or Europe or China. if your areas of looking at flights, or if you have been looking at trade history of hotels or of the likes, the advertisements or the outreach will be hyper localized. And in fact, probably there'll be engines that already have scraped your social profile like Facebook or Instagram or things of the likes and send to you a very highly personalized so-called marketing message, a message that you can't refuse or something that you really want to click on. In the areas of blockchain itself, I believe moving forward that consumers or people that provide their specific information would be able to provide access of how their data information would be shared, as well as what they would accept in terms of information. So the question would be how to reach out to a willing buyer from a willing seller. So if I today want to buy a house and I said, I do accept those information, I'm able to trace that itself, I think that would be very much more specific in the rights that's provided from the data itself. Of course, from a cybersecurity angle, that's where eventually those information and data would be very much more highly secure. So in areas of digital marketing, highest impact, I do believe AI will be the one that will be able to most effectively impact what we term as the revenues or the bottom line, and the other two technologies more so for security, privacy purposes.
Okay, next question is from Eugene. Which company that has implemented blockchain that's also listed, which you think he can invest into in terms of stocks?
Well, I'm a technology, I would say a subject matter expert, not investment subject matter expert. So unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that question. But I guess companies that are good fundamentally means that the company is good fundamentally. If they were to implement a technology, the technology is there to enhance upon their fundamentals, right? Of course, sometimes business models might impact the companies, but more so if the company is managed properly, it has strong fundamentals, is providing value to the customers, technology is an enhancement. It's not so much the fundamental that so-called they might rely on specifically just for business, unless they are a technology company. So I'm afraid you have to do some research yourself.
Okay, and we have the fourth question from Andre. How to implement or share idea from your perspective for blockchain technology, let's say, for example, to printing packaging industry?
You can send me an email and after we can take that offline. If not, it's going to take another 30 minutes to 1 hour to talk about that.
Okay, because that was a very short answer, I'll move on because we do have some time, so we'll try to answer as many questions as we can for today. From Janik, how can we use blockchain or AI in unorganized sector?
Unfortunately, I do not really understand the definition of an unorganized sector. I'll try to assume that it might be a non-fully controlled or decentralized environment. I guess the idea about blockchain to a certain extent, and I'm overgeneralizing here because there are many different types of blockchain, but you are able to create a system that no one needs to trust the next person that's utilizing it if it's a decentralized model for blockchain. There are centralized models for blockchain as well, but probably I will talk a little bit about the decentralized model. So imagine this. If today you have 100 people that would like to vote for a specific cause, right? Say A, B, or C, or even A and B to simplify the matter. You're able to organize so-called that vote utilizing blockchain, where the original individual that's voting will put in his potential details, has a timestamp across that, acknowledge that he's the person that's actually voting or polling, and this vote mechanism can be implemented to all these 100 different groups of people in multiple different ways, whether it's through the email, whether it's through a system, and so on and so forth. The fundamental fact is because you're able to then track when, where, and who was the one that was voting upon it. You do not need to organize like an actual voting timing where everyone comes at a specific time. You do not need to actually then validate whether that specific individual was a fraudulent person of the likes, because blockchain in that particular extent might be able to better track and verify if that specific individual is actually who he say he is, and whether the vote that he made was accurate, and more importantly, after the vote, that the votes were non-tampered with. So I guess that's probably the best I can answer according to what I assume an unorganized sector might be.
Okay, we do still have a bit more time. There's a question from Gab. Since now only Bitcoin is incorporated in the mainstream in financial industry, do you think any further crossover chance or direction you guess? So I guess it's about a question about Bitcoin.
Okay. I believe that the next speaker, Alvin, will be better equipped to handle Bitcoin. So I would cover more in the areas of technology, in the areas of blockchain. Technically, blockchain and cryptocurrency, it's two different matters. Of course, blockchain became popular and was founded, right, through the original inception of Bitcoin into this world. So that's what a lot of people so-called intermingle that with. But I believe the next speaker will be able to cover more on Bitcoin.
Okay, in that case, we will leave this question for the Q&A later during the Bitcoin section. We do have another question from Jiray Xiao again. Which blockchain protocol will be the most dominant globally?
The one that would be used by the most people eventually. Unfortunately, we have no answer for that. Right now, at this point of time, we are very much at a discovery phase. So to use an analogy for that is, I'm not sure if everyone can remember this. I won't even talk about VHS, right? But let's talk about like CD-ROMs or DVDs or Blu-ray. And there are many different technologies in space, right? And even that's outdated already. And moving forward today, right, we talk about, say, Google Drive or Microsoft Drive, or even, say, Dropbox. Who would be the main dominant player in terms of drive systems within, who will be dominant global player? Fundamental fact is we do not know yet. So I think in the blockchain space, we are still very much at infancy stage, where not a lot of people are fully utilizing it. There's huge amounts of traction in terms of the technology being implemented, right? Increasingly and acceleratingly so. There's huge movements, of course, in China, where they are looking at implementing their BSN network, which is their blockchain service network, as well as them already trialing out their decentralized, I wouldn't say, their digital currency payments, right, from their central bank itself. So China is a huge component towards the number of population we have in the world, as well as number of consumers. They move very heavily into blockchain. Their blockchain is not necessarily decentralized. In fact, it's more centralized than decentralized. Of course, in the US, we have Libra that has, over the course of not large number of months, have been trying to go through the hurdle of passing through US itself from a legal perspective. They have not had a lot of progress yet. Temasek have recently joined the consortium of Libra just a couple of weeks back. So there's a lot of movements within that space. Of course, in the financial sector, HSBC has moved like 20% of their custodian onto the blockchain itself for a specific sector that they have in the trading space. So there's a lot of movements within space, but we have no idea who will be the dominant player. And I believe that it will take a while, even for us to have sight on who might even be stronger. I won't even say who's dominant.
Okay, I guess our time is up. So for the other questions that is unanswered, please keep them coming in. We will collate the questions and we'll send the answers to you after the webinar session.
All right,
now,
thank you.
Thank you very much for our first speaker, Hui Jie. Thank you. Okay, right now, I would like to introduce our second speaker. He is nonetheless Duke Alvin Lim. Duke is a Forex trader and an algorithm developer with the experience of 12 years. He has self-learned and started trading in 2007, and ever since, he has made his first pot of gold from Forex trading. He has a degree in computer science from University of Queensland, which actually gave him an advantage in self-learning. He is right now the CEO of RWP Capital International, using the system that is developed by the company chairman, Mr. Raymond Pua. The company have grown its funds in trading Forex by 4,912% within a short span of 4 months, with $300,000 USD copying the company's trade. We will now welcome Duke Alvin Lim. Over to you.
Hi everyone. Good evening. Right, Duke Alvin Lim here. Now, so today what I'm going to share with you is this topic: cryptocurrency. Is this a new norm? Right. Before I start, so let's go through some disclaimer. So this session is purely informative and it's not intended for any promotion or any products or investment. So do not hold me, JCM Marina, nor RWP Capital in any way. And we don't endorse any product or investment which may be discussed during this session. Now, with that disclaimer, let's start. So let's give a little bit background of myself. So as Michelle have mentioned, I actually graduated with an IT degree in the University of Queensland. Now, I recall back then, one of my topic was cryptology. So let me share a bit. So today, what is cryptocurrency? Now, cryptography, cryptocurrency is formed by two words: crypto and currency. Now, so let's take a look. What is crypto? Cryptography is the science of encrypting and decrypting data, and the key benefits that it gives is authentication, confidentiality, integrity, and non-repudiation. And of course, currency, everyone knows what's currency. We use it as a form of a payment. That's what currency is. So cryptocurrency, that gives you the rough idea. Now, I will speak a bit about Bitcoin since it's just nice. Someone did ask about Bitcoin earlier. So just quoting Investopedia. Now, Bitcoin have been quoted in Investopedia as the grandfather of cryptocurrency, as well as the first official application of blockchain technology. So how does it work? Now, Bitcoin is based on the distributed ledger, right? Or rather a blockchain. So as you can see this graph over here, we have this block over here with a lot of blocks, and it's all chained up together. And each block itself contains information about each block contains multiple transactions, and each transaction contains lots of data like the hash, what is the transaction ID from where to where, what to what, and all that. So it all forms, so all the things form together into one block and it's chained up. So a typical process of Alice sending something to B, or for example, Alice sending Bitcoin to B. So how does this work? Assuming that Alice wants to buy a product from Bob using Bitcoin. So she uses her private key, signs a message with the exact amounts of the Bitcoins with Bob's address, and requests a transaction. Now, this particular record is then stored into this memory pool, a pool of transactions waiting to be processed. Now, this transaction will require to be bundled together with other transactions. So from all these huge pool of transactions, right, the miner will then pick which one to actually include into a block. And of course, some things that I mean, you guys can go ahead to check is like things like transaction fees and all that. And if a particular transaction carries a higher fee, the possibility it is picked up faster and registered into a blockchain. Now, once it is picked up and formed together into a block, this block is then broadcast to all the mining nodes on the Bitcoin network. Now, that being said, right. So now the whole network of Bitcoin miners will then validate Alice transaction using algorithms, right? And this process is called mining. Now, The whole process is based on a very complex mathematical algorithm. Now, the first miner who solves and validates this receives the right to write this blockchain, to place this block into the blockchain. Now, and when that happens, this miner gets a portion of Bitcoin as a reward. As it currently stands now after the recent halving in 12 May, right? The block reward is actually standing at about 6.25 Bitcoins per block. Right. So now that the transaction is completed, the block is then added to the chain. And therefore, the whole process goes all over again, minus gathering all the transactions together, form into a block, and then another new block is being added. So when a new block is added on top of the other, right, it is stacked onto each other. Now, the industry standard is that it normally for Bitcoin, right, we take about 6 transactions to deem it as confirmed. Now, what do I mean by a 6 blocks confirmation? That is, imagine this, if I've got this block that I've just written here, over here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on top. Now, knowing that all these is based on the concept of distributed ledger, the whole ledger, or rather the whole blockchain, is actually stored on each and every miner's with each and every miner. So each of them actually stores a record of this. Now, to tamper with any record, say the 7th record, the hacker have to tamper with this. That's first thing. Now, on top of that, because of the hash and the key codes, right, they actually have to tamper with all the rest of the blocks on top of this block, which means that not only do I have to tamper with this block, I have to tamper with this, all the way up to the most recent records. That is something not easily achievable. And on top of that, not only does he need to do that, he will actually have to convince 51% of the blockchain miners or of the nodes, right, to actually accept that this tempered, this new record is the correct record. So not only does he have to tamper, he have to convince 51% of the network that that this is the true record. So that gives that actually increased the difficulty, and therefore we deem that a blockchain technology is quite secure in that sense. It actually raised the difficulty. Now with that, right, that said, this is a rough, this is a very elementary rough explanation how a blockchain works. So just now I was talking about distributed ledger technology. Assuming that this particular ledger, all these records are being stored in one centralized ledger. Now, if a hacker gains access or have the rights to tamper with this centralized ledger, I'll say that's it. He can actually tamper with the records. Now, assuming that this ledger is distributed to all the nodes in the blockchain network, altering it will prove very difficult. So that's the benefits of this distributed ledger technology system. So just some key numbers on Bitcoin, right? Wait, let me right. So as of now, right, one new block of blockchain is created every 10 minutes. And the current block reward is actually 6.25 Bitcoin. The last block reward halving was actually in 11th May 2020. For more information, you can check out this website, bitcoinblockhalve.com. Now, we talk about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is coined as the grandfather of all cryptocurrency. Now, what are the rest known as? Well, anything that's not Bitcoin is known as altcoins, alternative coins. So altcoins actually includes things like Ethereum, Tether, Ripple, Litecoin, and many others. So over here, you can actually see bottom right. This is what I screen captured as of a few days ago. This is by market capitalization. The top few market cap of the cryptocurrencies available. So you can see that Bitcoin currently stands with a market cap of 180 trillion. To share a bit, there's this thing, Ethereum. Now, Ethereum, what's Ethereum? Ethereum is one of the altcoins, and it is also known as the second largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization. One key feature about Ethereum is it features the usage of smart contracts, and therefore, Ethereum network serves as the platform for it should be over 260,000 other cryptocurrencies. So there's a lot of other cryptocurrencies or tokens that actually uses the Ethereum network. Next, I'd just like to share with you one of the cryptocurrencies that I use a lot also. It's called Tether, USDT, right? It is a stable coin. What do they mean by a stable coin? It is actually a stable coin is something backed. It's a cryptocurrency that's pegged to something which is stable. So in such a case for Tether, it's actually pegged 1:1 to the US dollar. So when we talk about Tether, it actually equates to about $1. One Tether is about $1 US dollar, and it is now currently the third largest cryptocurrency by market capitalization. Right. So I was checking a marketcapitalization.com. This market cap, right? So I managed to get a snapshot of 2013, April 27. Now, as you can see, that was 7 years ago, and cryptocurrency was only around for like about 4 years or so. Bitcoin was the leading one with a market cap of only 1.5 billion. And fast forward 7 years later, from a 1.5 billion, it became a 180 trillion market capitalization. So that was then, and this is now, right? One thing I like to highlight is the adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies over these few years have really skyrocketed. Next is actually this. In fact, these are the big companies accepting Bitcoin at the moment, and I'm very sure that there are many, many other companies out there. Companies like IBM, Expedia, Subway, ChipAir.com, Dell, Netflix, Virgin, Tesla, Microsoft, and many others are accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment. So something I would like to share is also about cryptocurrency Visa cards. These are the two cards that I hold at the moment also. So how do I use them? What do I do with them? So you can actually see that I was doing some post spending on cryptocurrency. So basically all these Visa cards, right? You can actually pay by Visa, by PayWave, and it's being supported. So what I'm doing recently is I'm converting, instead of using credit card, I'm using these Visa cards as a form of payment. So what else can I do with cryptocurrencies? Now, as a trader, I've also recently funded some trading accounts. Now, the conventional way of doing funding of trading accounts could be like through bank transfer, through credit cards. So for a typical bank transfer, right, it would normally cost me between 20 to 50 USD for that bank transfer to reach my trading broker. Now, you can actually see from this, right? Just to send 30,000 USDT, it only cost me 0.016 of an Ethereum, which is approximately only 33 cents USD. Compare it with the $20 to $50 that I have to pay on a TT. So I'm heavily using cryptocurrencies to transfer funds to. So that actually brings me to an end to this session, right? I would like to check if at this current point, right, I'll hand it back to the organizations so that they can, the organization, for them to take in questions so that I can answer. So with that, can I hand it back to Michelle? Hello.
Hi. Okay, so now thank you very much for Duke's awesome presentation. Do you guys have any questions for Duke? Please type it out in the chat group and I'll convey the questions on your behalf. Okay, a question from Tiago. He's asking, should I hold or sell my Bitcoin? I guess it's probably referring to right now.
Right. So this question, right, I'll say is really up to the individual. For me, myself, I'm still having quite a fair bit of holding in Bitcoin, but at the same time, I actually offloaded some Bitcoin earlier yesterday morning. And thankfully, luckily, it came down a bit, so I was able to enter a bit again yesterday night. So whether should you hold or should you sell Bitcoin? The question is to ask, is to see this. What do you see in the value of Bitcoin? Do you think that there'll be mass adoption in the coming years? And if there's a mass adoption of a blockchain, I think previously I also mentioned about how blockchain is tied to cryptocurrency. You do know that to host this whole blockchain technology, we need to have miners around. And why should miners be putting up their mining machine to actually host all this information? Ultimately, they don't do it for free. They get rewarded with cryptocurrencies, things like Bitcoin, Ethereum. So if you do see the mass adoption, probably you might think whether would it be adopted more and more by the mass market in a later date. And with that, should the value increase? Right? So that's one thing for you to think about. Yep.
Okay. Before we go into Jirai's question, because previously during Huitie's Q&A, there's actually a question relating to Bitcoin, if you recall. I would like to go back to that question. The question says, since now only Bitcoin is incorporated in the mainstream in financial industry, do you think any further crossover chance or direction, you guess?
Okay, the question was only Bitcoin, currently only Bitcoin is used in financial. Was that the question again? Sorry, let me hold back.
Yeah, so I guess the question meant that Bitcoin is now the mainstream in financial industry. Do you think there's any chance that there will be a further crossover or like any directions?
Okay, let me understand this clearly. So we have this question saying that Bitcoin is the mainstream use in financial. I would probably say no, not only Bitcoin, right? In terms of, like, for example, I'll just have to quote you things like Ethereum and USDT. So when I'm funding my trading account, right, I can actually fund it in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, in USDT. One of my favorites is actually to use USDT. Why? Because as a stable coin, it removes the fluctuation, it removes the volatility of what I'm supposed to pay. For example, if Bitcoin is worth like I sold it at 9,800 yesterday, but currently this morning, I think was now, if I'm not wrong, now currently is about 9,004. So that difference of a few $100 to eliminate that kind of doubt, right? For transactions, financial transactions, I would prefer to use USDT. So and in the industry, people are accepting Ethereum and USDT too. So yep. So Bitcoin is not the only one being used.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. If you have any follow-up question, you may continue asking in the chat. I'll read them out after everybody else. So now we have the next question. What is the probability that cryptos will displace national currencies of governments, or will governments come up with their own cryptos such as RMB from Chinese government?
So this is a very good question. Now, the probability of cryptos replacing national currency is question is an answer that I can't give. I don't think anyone is able to give. Now, but I'm pretty sure that as we progress, governments will really adopt electronic currencies, right? As we have seen, right, over the past few years or decade, in China, I mean, I went to China quite often. Now, what happens is that if you don't have a WeChat payment, I feel very handicapped over there. A lot of things can't be done. I can't book a taxi or the taxi. I can't even order a McDonald's online and all, right? A lot of people have in China already adopted WeChat payments and all. So in the Chinese government, yes, they are going to come up with the RMB, and I'm pretty sure moving forth, more and more governments might be going along the same path. Now, one of the things I wanted to also say is this, right? When we talk about is cryptocurrency going to be the new norm, I'm not sure how you guys have been going around this couple of months in terms of in Singapore we call it circuit breaker, in some other countries some other forms, but I do realize the fact that a lot of us are starting to use things like in Singapore, like GrabPay, FavePay, all those online payment system more and more. So the chances of government come out with their own e-currencies, I would say high possibility. But is Bitcoin and altcoins going to displace national government currencies? I'll tell you that coming from a government wouldn't easily allow that. So that's my view. That's just my view, right?
Okay, another question is which one you like to trade more, crypto or FX?
Well, honestly, anything that makes money. So I actually have my company and our company chairman, we have a system to trade Forex, and we are working and it's working very well on the MT4 platform. Currently, in terms of cryptocurrency, I'm also trading cryptocurrency myself, but I haven't written a algorithm on it yet. It's still based on manually looking at it and placing orders.
Okay, so we have a question from Andre. Can you share for blockchain tech developer company that can provide easy to apply custom made apps that can be used depend on our industry?
Share for blockchain tech.
I guess he meant, do you have any blockchain tech kind of developer companies that is able to produce customized app that will be able to customize to individuals industry?
Yes, in fact, I do have one in mind. I believe the previous speaker, Mr. Lim Hui Jie from Vision Group, their company does that. They are able to customize blockchain applications for the industry. So probably you can link up with previous speaker Hui Jie.
Okay, we have another participant, Wesley. His question is, would we see future adoptions of decentralized finance, in short DEFI, and decentralized application, in short DAPPS, being used on various blockchains like on the Ethereum network?
To answer that, right, in fact, we are actually using that already, right? If you were to recall one of my slides, I actually have this cryptocurrency Visa card called MCO. Now, MCO is using the Ethereum network. So yeah, we are already using it. And if you do ask me, there will definitely be more and more apps used on the Ethereum network. One thing is the Ethereum network being able to feature things like a smart contract. Yep.
Okay, and we have another question from Ziray Xiao. Every time one converts cryptos, Bitcoin or altcoin, the spread is large. how do you minimize the spread? Example, which exchange has the lowest spread?
Right. So when you're talking about converting cryptos, now one thing I can tell you is due to its market cap and and adoption, the spread for Bitcoin and Ethereum is actually pretty small. Right. You can check this out on Binance, cause one of the what do you call it? A exchange I use is actually Binance.com. Now, that is you can actually see that for that is the spread is quite relatively good. Now, if you to talk about things like the MCO token, that is the cryptocurrency, one of the cryptocurrency that I mentioned, they have this thing called the MCO token. Now, if I were to check, right, MCO token, the spread are relatively large. So sometimes I would choose to, for example, convert my cryptocurrency directly to SGD or whatever it is. Yeah. So as to minimize, so the lesser the transactions going through, right, the less you pay for the less spread you pay. So normally what I'll do is I'll most of my transaction is in Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT. Yep.
Okay, there is no another question from the participant chat, but I do have a question myself. Just now, earlier you mentioned in one of your slides that there is this Bitcoin or this cryptocurrency called Tether that is pegged to USD. Correct? It's pegged to
That's right.
USD 1:1. My question is, does that mean that if we are trading in Tether, we are trading AKA USD as well? And shouldn't cryptocurrency be decentralized? Why is it pegged to a FX instead?
So this part of the question, I'll have to mention this thing. Yes, cryptos are decentralized. Therefore, when someone asks me the question, would government have their cryptos? I was actually saying probably e-currencies, but cryptos not really, but e-currencies. Now back to the question about USDT, right? USDT, the whole concept about it is that it's being a stable coin, something to peg to, right? So in like I mentioned also, if I were to do a trade, let's say if I'm going to buy, say for example, a car, and it costs about say 100,000 Sing dollar. Now I need to pay, if I were to use Bitcoin, right? Like I mentioned, Bitcoin's fluctuation could be today morning is 9,800 USD, afternoon it came down to 9,004 and so forth. There's a volatility, and to eliminate that, we have this thing called stablecoin, and USDT being what it is pegged. It is designed to peg to USD 1:1, and they maintain one. So when we talk about like for example, one of the example I'll have to quote you is when I funded my forex trading account, I funded 30,000 USD, and it equates to 30,000 USD in my forex broker's account. So this is one of the use of Ether, which is the stable coin, to eliminate the fluctuations of the coins fluctuations.
Okay, we have a question from Jonathan. What are the wallets that he should use to hold his currency? What are the wallets?
There are many wallets out there. For me myself, I wouldn't say what wallet you should or should not use, but for me myself, I would rather prefer to use things that's like Binance. Binance.com have a wallet, you can use Binance, and the fact that I'm using this MCO card, I use their wallet also. So these are some of the wallets that I use. Yep.
Okay, does anybody else have any question? Oh, Jonathan asked another follow-up question. What are the trading tools you use for trading crypto?
Okay, trading tools. I use Binance.com to trade. So that is my tool. And so define trading tools. You mean like indicators or what's not, or
maybe Jonathan, do you want to clarify? Yeah, he meant trading crypto bot or manual.
All right. So, like I mentioned earlier, when I trade on Forex, I have written algorithms and it can work on my MT4 program. So far, I haven't really written anything to trade crypto, which is on Binance.com. So currently, for my crypto trades, I actually do it manually, right? But I have dabbled with placing orders using a bot before. But to trade, I actually put in the trades manually.
Does anyone have any question? If not, I do have one question myself. Okay, maybe let me ask my question first. You guys can continue, keep your questions coming as we do have a bit of time left. And it's a golden opportunity for you to now ask all your desiring questions to the speaker who are here with us today. We have a question from Christine. As an end user of cryptocurrency card yourself, what are some of the potential benefits that you foresee using cryptocurrency credit card versus a normal credit card? Actually, this question, coincidentally, is a question that I wanted to ask as well. So I do have an understanding that right now cryptocurrency is becoming part of a lifestyle, and there are some companies out there who are creating credit cards. And it looks just like and when you use it and when you receive the card itself, it looks just like a normal Master and Visa credit card kind of thing. But when you go around, in shopping malls and all restaurants, and you start spending, you are actually spending the actual cryptocurrency that you're trading in instead of SGD or USD or any forex currency. And that's my take as well. What's your take on that?
Right, so I have to break this down. Currently, I have two cards. One is being issued by this company called 10X, so I call it the 10X card. The other one is by this company called MCO or Crypto.com, you call it, right? So both of them are Visa cards. So as long as you can use Visa, you can use it like PayWave, etc. Now, one key difference between 10X card and a Crypto.com card is this. If it is a 10X card, it is being tagged to your wallet, your cryptocurrency wallet. Therefore, when you spend, it is actually, for example, if you spend $100 Sing dollars, what will happen is that you will then see whether do you have enough Sing dollars balance in terms of, for example, if you take it to your Bitcoin. If it's Bitcoin, do you have 100 Sing dollars worth of Bitcoin at the moment to spend that? So 10X card spends your cryptocurrencies direct. Now, for the Crypto.com card, what it does is there is actually a SGD wallet, and that's where you spend it from. So to minimize the fluctuations that I've been talking about, is like when I feel that Bitcoin is on its high, for example, like 9,800 yesterday, I convert it into a Sing dollar, and that value gets stored in my MCO card Sing dollar account. Now, when I spend $100, it's actually deducting from that Sing dollar account. So this is one of the main difference between the two cards. Now, what is the potential benefit? I wouldn't even say potential benefit. One of the reason why I'm using this Crypto.com card is this. It actually gives me a rebate based on how much I spend. So the one that I'm currently holding, it actually gives me a 4% three or 4% rebate. Yeah. So what I do is if I wanted to, I can easily use my credit card to load up this my normal traditional credit card to load up this Crypto.com card, and from my normal traditional card, I should already have my depending on points. Is it a points card or is it a cashback rebate card? I would have already so-called gain a bit of gains from there. Now, when it goes to my Crypto.com and I spend it on my Crypto.com card, I'll also get a 3% rebate on that. So I get both sides. Yeah. So that's one thing. So I think in my slides above, right, I think one of my spending is actually paying for AIA insurance, which is about 1,007-ish Sing dollar. So based on that spending, I will get a 3% rebate on my crypto.com card. So yeah, this is some of the advantage. And being a believer of cryptocurrency, I believe that this thing have always been true. All right, if a thing, if something is not being used, it's not being adopted, I don't think there's a value, right? So when more and more people adopt it and start using it, therefore that is where the value it is. Therefore, you have more value. So as a supporter of cryptocurrency, this is why I also support using cryptocurrency card, other than those small little rebates and gains that I get. So I hope that answers that.
I do have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you're getting rebate out of cryptocurrency credit card, unlike normal credit cards that actually charge a hefty amount of interest rate. Are there any interest rate of sorts that is charged on cryptocurrency cards?
Okay, so one thing to tune back is this: the cryptocurrency cards that we use, or I have, or we use, is more like, think of it more like a debit card. You have it, you use it. You don't have it, you don't use it. It's not a credit card, but more like a debit card, right? So when you talk about credit cards having interest rates, that's because you are using your credit. Now, when you are using your debit, you already have that amount in your wallet or in your bank or whatsoever. Therefore, you don't pay the kind of interest. But that being said, credit cards also offers cash rebates. Some do, right? So this crypto.com card is actually something along the line whereby you actually spend it and they convert your spendings and give you a rebate.
Okay, we do have a question from Jiray. Blockchain and cryptos are supposed to be very secure, but how come cryptos exchanges are often hacked and millions lost?
So one thing about blockchain, right? The technology themselves is secure, but what about the website? What about the how it's being adopted? Right. So these are the things that we have to consider. But for this particular question, I can't really answer very in depth because yeah, that's something that I never in depth study it. But what I can tell you is the whole concept about blockchain is secure, right? It's just like I would rather say like things like this, like we do know that blockchain is secure and also, but how come there are people talking about cryptocurrency or blockchain scams? So think along that line. Is it truly blockchain technology not secured, or is it because of some other or the way it's being applied, like through the website or some other a technology that actually the breach is there?
Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Okay, seeing none, that there's no other questions, I would like to proceed on with the closing. Before you guys head off, we would like to do a very quick screenshot. I will actually stop sharing this for a moment, and Ken here will be helping us to do a screenshot. Put on your most beautiful smile for us today. And if you really enjoyed this session today, you can actually click on the reaction button that's at the top right-hand corner of the Zoom app itself and give us a thumbs up. Ken, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. So everyone just on your video for 3 minutes.
Can everybody switch on your video for a while?
All right. Any more?
Happy to see a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah. Everyone is starting to video up. Come on.
And I see a US dollar there.
Okay. Any more? Are you going to on your video?
Okay, if there's none, let's put up a thumbs up reaction. And
yeah, I say 3, 2, 1. Then I will take a screenshot. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken. And this is actually a little link for feedback on SYEA webinar today. We do really value and treasure your feedback. As we have mentioned, the SYEA business program will actually go on and on for the next upcoming 1 year, from June 2020 all the way to June 2021. There'll be a lot of exciting programs coming up. Ken, can you actually help us to do a poll as well? The poll is actually meant for us to understand what are the upcoming topics that you actually expect from us, and what are the deliverables that you expect from us as well within the next upcoming year. So maybe take a quick 1 minute to 2 minutes or so, look through the questions and maybe just answer these 2 simple poll questions, and it'll be greatly appreciated. And when you have time, please do go to this SYEA feedback link. It's mainly to evaluate our course, our program today, and also to evaluate the effectiveness of the speaker, so that we will be able to understand more from your point of view, and we will be able to improve for our future sessions as well. Okay, right now we have about 60% of the participants have completed the poll. I'll wait for a few more seconds for the remaining participants to submit your poll. Has everybody answered the poll questions already? And also the feedback link, Ken has actually posted in the chat group. You can easily click into the link over there, and you can always fill it up at the end. All right, so now Ken has already posted the poll, and we can see that there's actually a great area of interest for algorithms and IoT, as well as e-commerce, blockchains, and fintechs. We will take this poll into account, and we will keep everybody updated of our upcoming programs. At the same time, most of you actually prefer virtual webinars or online conference. We will take that into account as well, and we will continue hosting such formats in future. All right, before you guys leave, I would like to just give you a bit of shout out for our upcoming event. As mentioned, SYEA do have an entire year of business programs that will be running. And the next upcoming event is actually 2 weeks from today. It will be held on 26th of June, 2020, same time at 7 p.m. And it will be also a virtual webinar. You can actually RSVP at the link right here. And Ken shortly will share the link so that you will have easy access to the registration site. Please also do screenshot, take a picture of this if you're interested to attend. Jin is actually the founder of Temzai Marketing. He is a very young entrepreneur at age 30 years old, and he has already done a lot of big MNC's project with digital marketing. And his topic will be ROI-driven digital marketing, driving leads, inquiries, sales, and growth. I guess right now it's actually a COVID-19 period. A lot of you guys are actually either in lockdown or in Singapore terms, we are in circuit breaker. Not all companies are back to work yet, as we are actually waiting for phase 2. While working from home, it's actually also interesting to understand how you can leverage from digital marketing. And here Jill will be able to share more to you. So has everybody actually taken a screenshot of this slides here? If yes, I'll just move on. The link is actually posted in the chat group already. It's actually http://tiny.cc/SYEA webinar 2. Okay, I'll move on from here right now. All right, and this brings us to the end of today's webinar session. I hope everybody have enjoyed. I hope that everybody have learned something from today's webinar session. I do love learning, and in fact, today I've learned a lot from Huijie and Duke. They are very insightful experts of their trades, and we really do hope to see you again on the 26th of June. If you would like to know more about SYEA and about the business programs that we hold, we will actually post our event updates on this following social media website, and you can actually follow us here. And yeah, we are actually a group of youths that's age 40 below from JCI Marina. And we really do hope that you are able to support us, because we are just a non-profit organization and we are all volunteers here. We are just trying to do good during the COVID-19 period and trying to help all businesses overcoming COVID-19 through all these webinars and sessions to help everybody gain more knowledge. With that, I would like to close today's webinar, and thank you very much for your time and patience with us today. And if you have any feedback, please do let us know. Thank you very much. Good night.
Hello, Alan. 你好啊. Patricia, Pipet, how are you? Are they muted?
I think they are muted.
Yes, they are muted. I have echoes, sorry. Members, you guys can stay behind. We can have a bit of chit chat. It's been a while. We have seen everybody. It's so sad that today they have disseminated information that ASPAC is cancelled. That's very, very sad. I hope everybody have not lost on their, hotels, accommodations, and air tickets price. If you guys can get the refund, please go ahead and get a refund. Traveling is zero for the entire JCI this year. I mean, I've been a JCI member for the past 6 to 7 years, and it's the first time that no JCI member is actually traveling year round. It's a sad, very, very sad thing.
I think you can stop your recording now.
Yeah, okay, can you please stop the recording? Thanks.